Thanks for checking out the BoshNRoll channel. If you want to see your deck featured on the channel, hang out with me and the amazing BoshNRoll community on Discord, access to my lists and sideboard guides before tournaments, or book an individual coaching session, check out the Patreon and YouTube member links in the video description. Use the code BoshNRoll to get 10% off the best Magic apparel on the market at coalesceapparel.shop. If you want to play what I'm playing, use my affiliate link to order cards from tcgplayer.com, or play any deck, anytime, with a Magic Online loan account from cardhoarder.com. Thanks again for being here. Now let's go play some Magic. Hello, and welcome to a special bonus edition of the BoshNRoll channel. I recently won a local Legacy tournament with Esper Yorion Kitten combo, and I had some requests to do a tournament report for it, so this is just going to be like a short video of basically me scrolling through my Twitter feed and remembering whatever I can about the matchups that I played. And hopefully this is fun. On the screen here is my screenshot, my photo of my actual deck that I played. It is the same deck that I played on the channel recently. You can find that right here. Legacy Esper Yorion Kitten combo. You Gotta Be Kitten Me is the clickbait title, so go ahead and get baited by that if you haven't already. Basically what's going on here is we've shoved a Displacer Kitten combo, which is the new card from Commander Baldur's Gate. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile target non-land permanent you control, and then it re-enters the battlefield immediately. Displacer Kitten with Teferi, Time Raveler, and any zero-cost artifact lets you draw your deck. As you play the zero-cost artifact, you flicker Teferi, you minus Teferi to bounce the zero-cost artifact, which draws a card. Then you replay the zero-cost artifact, flickering Teferi again. You get to draw your deck. At some point, you draw this One of Mox Amber, and that One of Mox Amber, at some point, casts Thassa's Oracle, because Amber counts legendary creatures or planeswalkers, which Teferi is. So you get blue or white mana equal to the number of cards left in your deck, as long as Mox Amber isn't in the bottom two cards of your deck, or if you started with more mana than you needed to get off the ground, you can win the game immediately with Thassa's Oracle. The other, like, combo-specific or kitten-specific cards in the deck are a Savine's Reclamation, because having Teferi is pretty important. Savine's Reclamation is just like two more copies of Teferi. Animate Dead is a heater. This gets a creature back from the graveyard, possibly including a countered or destroyed Displacer Kitten, or a Solitude, or a Mentor, or a Recruiter of the Guard, whatever, you know, the creatures in the deck. And from there, you can blink that creature and keep it forever. The Animate Dead goes away, but the creature remains. You could also blink Animate Dead, moving it around to reanimate different creatures over the course of the game. Really cool piece of tech there. Credit to this list goes to Pokemoki, by the way. Deck builder and Magic Online player. Generally wonderful person to interact with, and his decks agree with me. So featured often on my channel. I moved a couple of cards around from the version I played that he gave to me originally, but this is credit to Pokemoki. Anyway, Recruiter of the Guard. This tutors up the cat if you need a cat. It can tutor up Baleful Strix if you just need to draw cards. Monastery Mentor if you want to win the game. Solitude if you want to remove some creatures. It's an insane thing to flicker. So is Solitude. Monastery Mentor. If you have Teferi and a 0 and Kitten, you can get infinite, well, not infinite, equal to the number of cards in your deck, Monks and Prowess triggers. That's an easy way to kill an opponent. Or if the shields are down, you can just like recruit for Mentor and go for a classic Mentor kill. You don't even need to combo. And all of this is tucked into a pretty reasonable Esper control deck in Legacy. Just Baleful Strix, Swords to Plowshares, Prismatic Ending, all the forces, all the cantrips, all the things you'd want just in an Esper deck anyway. The Kittens, the Oracle, and the Amber are the cards I would really consider the combo core, and that's only 5 out of your 80 cards. That's a pretty good deal to just tuck into a control deck. I've been saying for a long time that I love having a combo kill in my control decks these days, because decks are just better than they were 3 years ago, 4 years ago, definitely better than they were 10 years ago. It's really hard to just control an opponent into the ground by having more cards than them, because every deck is good at drawing cards now. I love having that eject button. Big fan of Aloran in Bant for this reason, big fan of Food Chain in Bant for this reason, and Displacer Kitten kind of does this for Jeskai and Yorion as well. I mean, Esper. Jeskai and Esper as well. That's the list. Let's review the tournament. It started off, of course, with a mirror selfie featuring the Coalesce Apparel 80 is the new 60 Yorion t-shirt. If you want that, check out coalesceapparel.shop and use the code BoshNRoll to check out for a discount. Shout out to Taitan Game Shop for running regular Legacy events for great prizes. First prize for this one was a Mox Diamond. That's worth playing for. Round 1, I got paired against my good friend Alex Bestecki, who had borrowed a bunch of cards from me to play in the tournament. And obviously I ran the I need my cards back joke several times as we shuffled up for the match. Then we got repaired, talked a little smack as you do. He's so lucky, angry faces all around. I got paired into another local, someone who has submitted decks to the channel before, named Franklin. Franklin is a known purveyor of jank combos, loves them. He was a Storm player when we met, and he's been in on like the Astral Cornucopia sort of charge counter decks. He's been on, I'm trying to even remember all the crazy shit he's played. Like if there's some like tier 7 jank combo deck that has any play to it at all, he's probably tried it. And he was on Sudden Substitution this time, no Hive Mind, just the straight combo version. And I remember I messed up game 1. I kind of put him on show and tell, even though I should have known better. And he wasn't really doing anything. He was like cantripping, spinning his wheels, and just like not putting anything together. So I flashed in an NSEP Wandering Emperor in like the mid game, made a Samurai, and he immediately used Sudden Substitution to switch that Samurai for a Pact of the Titan, and I died. So I messed up game 1, and then games 2 and 3, I knew what he was on. I was able to win fights over Teferi. He took a board plan where he took out all his forces in favor of Defense Grid, and we talked about it after the match, and he's pretty sure that's not the way to approach the matchup, because I also have unbeatable cards in my deck in Teferi and Narset and Flusterstorm and Daze. Just I have all this stuff that I can just beat his combo with, and I can win the game without casting creatures early on. So we're not really sure where we landed on that, whether Force of Will, Defense Grid, or some combination of both is where you want to be in the matchup, but I ended up getting away with it. Had a Death and Taxes opponent. Our game went almost to time. I think we had 12 seconds left on the clock, and that was a 2-0 victory. It was just 2 games. It just took forever. I don't really believe I was in any danger of losing at any point, because the Esper card advantage and the Baleful Strixes and the Recruiters and Yorion looming and all the removal, you're just not really in danger of dying to that deck ever, but it might take a while to win. And we had a really satisfying moment where I said, I'm going to blitz Nightclubber. And he said, you're going to what now? And then read the card and was like, well, shit. Then he put 2 cards in the graveyard and then also Swords to Plowshares the Nightclubber. So we got a tasty little 3-for-1 out of that. Nightclubber was amazing the whole time, by the way. That's worth the 1 slot. Round 3, I played against 8cast. He got me game 1. He was on the play, had a turn 1 Chalice of the Void that just sort of collapsed my hand. I kept like Island Ponder Keep, you know me. That's how I do. And the Chalice really collapsed me, didn't have the prismatic ending for it, and couldn't keep up. Then in the game 2, I think he kept a hand without a blue source. It was like turn 1 Chalice with 2 or 3 bauble effects, and the baubles never found a blue source. I removed the Chalice easily because I was ready for it that game, and then just didn't do anything. Game 3, we had a pretty good back and forth until I just slammed Energy Flux at 18 life, and he was just like, okay. And we played a few more turns, but his permanents got smaller and smaller and smaller each turn until he conceded. Round 4, played against Alex Bestecki again. This time we were actually have to play. There was no repair. I talked some more trash. He played very bad and got lucky and beat me. But that's only partially true. He played fine. Our game 1, he got some early damage on me with Ledger Shredders and Dragon's Rage Channelers. I stabilized. I had Displacer Kitten, Recruiter of the Guard, Yorion in play, and a handful of spells at 5 life. Oh, and Baleful Strix was also in play. At 5 life, and he had 3 Dragon's Rage Channelers, no cards in hand, and they were not delirious. And I passed the turn. I was just like locked to win it on the following one, but he drew Brainstorm, and cast Brainstorm, surveilled 3 times, put 3 cards in the graveyard, resolved Brainstorm, which hit Expressive Iteration, surveilled 3 times, put 3 cards in the graveyard, picked up more cards, cast those cards, which put 3 more cards in the graveyard, and found another expressive iteration. The second expressive iteration found Lightning Bolt to bolt me, put me to 2, and then his 3 Dragon's Rage Channelers, which are now super delirious, got through Yorion and Strix to do the last 3. So it really came down to that last turn. And then our game 2, I kept a hand that was a little soft to Wasteland, and he had a Wasteland, and I ended up just dying with 2 lands in play, which is not how combo, or not how control wins matches. So, tough one there, but Wasteland's a hell of a card. Here I just sort of pondered out loud about Invisalign. I started Invisalign recently, if you need to know my life. And you have to floss and brush like completely, do like a complete mouth clean after you eat anything. And normally I eat like a granola bar and drink a bottle of water between every round of a Magic tournament to stay sharp. And I wasn't able to do that. So I'm going to have to bring some like smoothies or something, or some sort of travel toothbrush kit or something. I got to figure that out, because I was just dying at this point in the day. Which is exactly how you want to feel when you get paired against local wizard Cameron, who is always an Ancient Tomb Chalice of the Void wizard, and usually some blue shell for it. He was the king of Tezzerator for a long time, but he's branched out into some more combo kind of stuff lately. And he was on Displacer Kitten Karn Undoing this time. His deck was a Chalice of the Void deck, like I said. It had Karn the Great Creator. It also had Displacer Kitten, which is a combo with Karn the Great Creator, by the way, if you don't know how this works. If you have Displacer Kitten and Karn, if you use Karn to wish for Tormod's Crypt, then you play Tormod's Crypt, flickering Karn, then you wish for Lion's Eye Diamond, flickering Karn, then you sack the Lion's Eye Diamond for mana, then you Tormod's Crypt yourself, which puts the Tormod's Crypt and the Lion's Eye Diamond into exile, and Karn can get cards from exile or your sideboard, so you wish for the Tormod's Crypt again. So each time you do this, you net 3 mana off the Lion's Eye Diamond, and then you just jam Walking Ballista once you have infinite mana. Karn and Displacer Kitten is a self-contained kill. So it had that going on, also had Chalice going on. Also, Karn is just good against me because I'm a partial artifact deck. I got Mox Ambers and Mishra's Baubles going nuts over here. They're part of my combo, so he's got that natural protection. And then he also just had Hull Breacher, Narset, Days Undoing, and Echo of Eons. So that was a terrifying matchup, but I did manage to narrowly get away with it. In our game 3, he was kind of shrugging off an Energy Flux. Like, I thought that would be good, and it just like killed a Grim Monolith that he had already tapped for mana. And then he like stuck a Karn, stuck a Hull Breacher, and I would have just died if he had a Days Undoing, but he didn't have it, and I was able to get over the finish line. But wow, that was scary. I tweeted his list, he tweeted it, and I retweeted it. If you want to check out that deck, it's very cool. You can comb my Twitter for that. I drew in with 8 cast in round 6. I was going to be in 3rd or 4th. Ended up in 4th place, where I got to get paired against my local young nemesis, Ryan Hayes, who is an up-and-coming Western PA Magic player. He's doing a lot of winning lately. He has great taste in decks. He usually plays the same sort of wedge that I do, like that deep control sort of flavor, like flavor of the month, whatever the best control deck, Ryan's probably on it, and he's probably playing it really well. And that's not really where I want to be. I want to use my control powers to overwhelm people who are playing worse than me with clunkier decks than me. But Ryan, not to disappoint, was on Yorion Displacer Kitten. He was on the same level as me, but he had Jeskai instead. So his deck has Pyroblast in it, and Expressive Iteration in it, and he had 2 Savine's Reclamations, all of the scariest cards in the matchup that I don't have access to. And I realized in the top 8, the deck lists were open, so I could see his whole list. I knew where it was going. I knew what I would have to fight over and how I would have to fight over it as best I could. And I realized this really cool pattern in our game 2, where my 1-for-1 interaction is Flusterstorm. His 1-for-1 interaction is Pyroblast. Flusterstorm gets worse the more often he makes land drops, so I want to be fighting over early Expressive Iterations to stop his card advantage and stop his land drops before my Flusterstorm becomes irrelevant anyway. But Pyroblast, the targets get better. Like, they go from Ponder up to Baleful Strix, up to Teferi and Narset, up to Displacer Kitten, and the longer you wait on Pyroblast, the better they get. But the longer you wait on Flusterstorm, the worse it gets. So I'm incentivized to fight over Expressive Iterations on turn 3 and turn 4 with Flusterstorm, which also happens to stunt his development. But my Strixes are going to resolve because he needs to save his Pyroblast for my Narsets and my Displacer Kittens. So my 2-mana card advantage spell is resolving, and his is not. And he really just never got anything going. And I cut the development out from under him. And despite on paper the matchup seeming horrible, he just didn't put up much of a fight in either game. Not sure if I got lucky or if I just found the secret sauce that countering the EIs is where you want to be, but that's what I did, and it worked. Once again, ran into good friend Alex Bastecki for a rematch from the rounds. He was my only loss in the tournament. This one was much more interesting, much more in my direction. I hit my land drops. He didn't cheese me with Wasteland. I had removal on time. I believe I comboed him out in game 1, just maneuvered the game, kept the pressure off, fetched my basics, and got to combo game 1. And then game 2 was really exciting. This was, I think, the coolest thing I did all day was I had a Teferi and I drew a Kitten when I had 6 mana. And I evoked Solitude, exiling one of his 3 creatures, and Solitude ended up in the graveyard. And then I played Kitten for 4 of my mana. Then I spent my other 2 mana on Animate Dead, which flickered Teferi with Kitten, getting back Solitude, exiling the other creature. Then I bounced Animate Dead with Teferi, putting Solitude back in the graveyard and Animate Dead back in my hand, and drawing a card. So I was just ready to Solitude the next thing too, and he couldn't really get through that. He was on the Maxtortion Rug Broken Cards deck, by the way. And then in the finals, I played against Elves. The Elves matchup is really scary for any blue deck these days. Allosaurus Shepherd is messed up. The work that Newton and the Elf community have put in on the Reclaimer builds, having the Endurance package, like just becoming this rock deck with uncounterable threats, Grist and like Zenith and all these things. It's a bad time to be a blue deck versus Elves. And game 1, I got really lucky somehow. I took game 1, which is not a thing that's supposed to happen. I must have just, I'm kind of brain farting right now. I'm not going to lie. I was very tired at this point of the night, but I think he just didn't really get anything going. And I had a lot of removal. And then I just assembled the cat pretty early on, as soon as the coast was clear. Game 2, my hand was pretty empty. We exchanged some early removal spells, but I didn't really get off the ground at all. And I had no interaction in my hand. And I saw him starting to count, and I was like, oh shit, I'm dead. And I was doing the math myself of like, okay, how much damage will a Craterhoof Behemoth do if he slams Natural Order here? And it was like barely alive. And then like he spent mana to Green Sun Zenith for 1, and I was like, okay, I'm not getting Hoof this turn. And he got Allosaurus Shepherd, but then he tapped Heritage Druid and the Shepherd and 1 other elf, and I was like, okay, that's 2 attackers that can't attack this turn. And I was just like doing all the math and like, okay, I don't think he can hoof me this turn. He has 3 cards in hand, 3 mana floating, only 1 attacker that can attack, plus the hoof if it comes into play. And the last 3 cards in his hand were 1-drop, 1-drop. Tap those 3 again for 3 more mana, Natural Order for hoof. And with all the extra creatures in play, the hoof just was big enough to smear me itself. And game 3, he thought seized my early Nightclubber. I kept a hand on the strength of Nightclubber, which is a great card, by the way. But he thought seized it. And it's okay, it's in the graveyard. I have Savine's Reclamation and Animate Dead to bring it back later. It's still live over there. And we ended up having some exchanges. And on the turn before I got set up with Kitten, I had resolved Kitten, but I couldn't combo. And I just had like a slow value Kitten. I passed the turn with Kitten and Baleful Strix in play and the Wandering Emperor and no other spells in my hand. And he went for an uncounterable hoof. And the attack was for 25, and I was at 16. So I was able to cast the Wandering Emperor, which flickered Baleful Strix to draw another card thanks to Cat. It didn't draw another spell, which would have made this easy, but the Wandering Emperor exiled the attacking Craterhoof Behemoth, which took 9 damage out of combat and gained me 2 life. I was able to trade my Baleful Strix for his Elvish Reclaimer, stabilize at 4, and then easily clean up from there. And that brings us to the winner announcement. +1 Mox Diamond for the collection, courtesy of Taitan Game Shop and Pokemoki's awesome list. There's that list again. There's the prize. And as always, you never stop grinding, posting my QR code to all my content on the Twitters. And that was my experience playing Yorion Kitten Esper combo at the Taitan Game Shop Legacy event. The deck was sweet. I don't know yet if Kitten is like a real Legacy staple, if that's where blue decks are going to go for a while, or if it's just the flavor of the week. It definitely felt good to me. I don't know if it's something that really can be adjusted to, or if it's going to be like a meta shifting thing where like it's Kitten for a while, then it's Uro for a while, then we're back to normal. Like, I don't know. Developing on the ground as we go. But I will say in that field of 34, 35 players, there were 4 Kitten decks. 2 of them made top 8, and 2 of them lost win-ins. And they were all to each other too. I was on the Kitten. I knocked Ryan's Jeskai Yorion Kitten out of top 8. I beat Cameron in the win-in for his mono blue artifact version. And then in the last round, Cameron played Ken, who is the person who submitted 60-card Yorion Kitten to my channel, a deck that I also recorded with. And he was on that deck too. So there were 4 cat decks. They all sort of rose to the top, and they only team killed each other. That's pretty powerful on week 1 of the set existing. I hope this was a fun little video. I will do these if they are received well when I win tournaments. And thank you all for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, talk about the list, buy a sweet Yorion shirt, or I'm also wearing this awesome Miscuts shirt, also from Coalesce Apparel right now. They have a lot of great shirts. Make sure to order some of those, use the code, get your discount, and check out the Patreon. All the links in the video description below, and I'll see you next time.